Okay, so
I see the comm tower to the left of the main barricade in front of Paladin.
Let's go.
so that's where we're headed. The Primarch is dead. And we don't even know who the new Primarch is because we can't communicate with Paladin, the planet that we are currently orbiting around. So, that does complicate matters a bit. Alright. So, this may be a... Oh, no, that's not where we go. I was going to say, if we're dropping down like that, then that would definitely be a point of no return. But, let's see. Got a soldier over here.
Husks at the tower overwhelmed us. Good luck.
Music sounds like perhaps those husks are coming right here. Okay, now we can sort of see them. There they are. Okay, so interestingly enough, you'll see there is at least one, perhaps two Turians back here. And I believe what we can do if we so choose is actually fall back and get the assistance of some of those Turians here. However, if we do so, yes, obviously we get some support fire. It's just that they can actually hit us with friendly fire. As we were saying before, we have some pretty nice combos for specifically husks. And granted, I did not really intend for us to, for us to throw that into the ground right there, but that should destroy a whole bunch of them right there. And then, so should that. And that might have just been every husk in the area, because biotic explosions are really good against husks, as it turns out. So that's pretty sweet. Is there anything? I mean, there's ammo over here, but as we've said previously, who needs to fire weapons when you have biotic explosions? So we should be good. I think we're good. We go around this side? Interesting. Not the angle that I expected us to be taking, but that's one of the husks. And here is the comm tower, the thing that we are trying to get back online. So let's just take a quick look around the area so we have a little bit of a circular spot around it, and few spots where we can pick up ammo. So, all right, let's check it out.
We can't repair it from this panel.
Okay, so we need to have somebody repair this thing, either Liara or James. And so, as you can probably imagine, that means whoever's doing that is going to be occupied doing that. So if you have someone between Liara or James that you feel like is very much the person that you prefer to be tag teaming stuff with, then make sure that that person is available and not the person that you send to do this repair job. So we do, of course, have a ton of biotic explosions for us. Liara is also very good at that. She's not quite as good at it as we are, but there is some potential for us to explode each other's biotic singularities, for example. So I might choose to keep Liara with us, although James, of course, is generally much tankier, so if we do get rushed down, he's more capable of taking hits, and he does more weapon damage, so depends on whatever your preference is. I think I'm going to have James make the repair, though, and we're going to see if Liara can handle herself here.
James, you're up for tower repair. On it. Might take me a while, but I'll do my best.
Okay. So, as you can probably imagine, that means we got ourselves
You bet. Let's take these monsters.
some Reapers to mess with. So we make them go boom. What we do. Liara, see, the thing, though, is that I would prefer if you didn't run up to them, because our greatest strength is that we can kind of, you know, like take them out with singularities and whatnot. So, you know, if you could just, like, specifically not do exactly what you're doing right now, that would be ideal. So let's singularity here, and Liara, we're gonna bail you out, but you might need to bail yourself out. We'll warp. And that one's just dead. Oh, that's not good. Singularity you. This is the thing, we can create choke points here by singularitying all the husks in this spot and making them all go boom, like that. And ideally, we would kind of cut you into this singularity, but I think that's perhaps wishful thinking. So we'll do that, and that husk may just get destroyed. And so maybe not quite dead. Liara, can you explode that one? And then we'll singularity here on these ones that are rushing us, kind of, sort of, and make these guys go boom. Alright, so James is now done. So that means that while we still may have husks remaining here, we will very shortly get our third squad member here. So that will definitely prove helpful. That's why you're seeing that there are enemies on fire. Because, oh, well, may have forgotten to tell James to give us all the incendiary ammo, but now we have it. That would have been helpful. I mean, then again, of course, we have yet to fire our weapon at all, because as we were saying, who needs weapons when you have biotics?
General, do you read? The comm tower is now operational.
Much appreciated, Commander. I'll contact Palaven Command.
Perfect.
Let me know when you've got something. I'll help your men till I hear from you.
Okay, so there are still some more husks.
Shepard,
We're looking to make our way back now because we have successfully repaired the comm tower. And at this stage, we may start to get some support from our Turian friends. Is that a... I thought I saw a big red dot somewhere over there for a second. Okay, let's just be mindful of trying not to get completely swarmed by the husks that are kind of sort of rushing us down. Ooh, hello, husk that just spawned directly in front of us. Please go away now. Sure, just go for warp. Probably will be sufficient. Maybe, possibly, sort of. Did you just get spawned in on top of our existing singularity? Because if so, then thank you. So yeah, I think we just, at this stage, want to more or less be rushing back. We took care of the husks that were in and around us.
Shepard, come in.
go ahead.
I have information from Palaven Command. Please return ASAP.
On our way.
Alright, so we got some experience and we did level up. So perhaps before we check in with those guys, let's take a look at our squad screen here, because we do now have enough points to fully upgrade throw. So that's something we were keen on doing, because that means we can get the double throw, which is nice for super crowd control, and I mean, that recharge time is lightning fast, so it's 1.23 seconds, which is basically an instantaneous recharge. Our singularity is quite quick. That means we've been able to throw out the singularity and almost immediately throw a warp after that. Our potential shortcoming would be, dare I say, we have a 2.5 second recharge time after warp, so we have this brief moment after we've done the biotic explosion, detonating it with the warp, in which we could theoretically get rushed down before we get the chance to throw out another singularity. So that's the way in which throw can help us a bit, and in situations in which we might actually need to use warp as our priming ability, because it can both prime and detonate, we can use warp to initiate and then use throw as our finishing detonator, because although warp can either detonate or prime, it can't do both to itself. So if we detonate, or rather if we prime with warp, we need to detonate with something else, and in that case it'll be throw. So that looks good for us. We actually have a couple points remaining here, and so we could consider throwing a point or two into our passives, or wait to upgrade our grenades, which is, obviously we can't do that immediately, but think we might be fine for the moment. I don't think either of these things are going to be desperately urgent, so maybe we decide later on if we feel the need to do that. Then for James with 2 points, I mean, it's either going to be this fortification here, this carnage here, or wait until we get more points to do something that is probably more significant. So, I mean, we're going to have to eventually get past this little roadblock here where we're not thrilled about the melee damage on rank 2 and rank 3 in fortification, but, you know, we got to do it at some point. So let's do it now. Then, Liara, what we're trying to do with you we're trying to get you to a similar point to where we are, where you can get these singularities and your warps to be a little more powerful, specifically, well, most importantly, the explosions, because you didn't quite seem to have enough damage to one-shot basic enemies with your singularity plus warp combos. So for her, I think we might go the recharge speed here. The lift damage, I mean, it tends not to be a huge deal. Then again, like, maybe it's enough with a tiny bit of lift damage. Plus, of course, the big damage from the biotic explosion would be just enough for the combo to take out the weak enemies. But as I was saying before, just having higher level skills that are getting involved in the priming and detonation could be enough. Although, tell you what, we might actually not go that far into Singularity with Liara, because she does have stasis as well, which is also a priming ability. So it works similarly to the way that Singularity works, and of course our Singularity, at least as things currently stand, is better than Liara's Singularity. So we could either go with a stasis, or I think short term it probably does make sense to go with a warp upgrade just to try to make her combos a little more potent, as we were saying. And the 7.6 recharge is a little bit painful, or at least certainly compared to us, but the extra damage from the expose that basically weakens enemies is quite nice. So we'll do that, and the explosion will be a little bit stronger just because warp is now a higher level. So that's nice. And now, let us chat with our team.
What have you got?
As your partner said, succession is usually simple. But right now, the hierarchy's in chaos. So many dead or MIA.
I need someone. I don't care who. As long as they can get us the Turian resources we need.
I'm on it, Shepard. We'll find you the Primarch.
I recognize that voice.
Vicarian, sir. I didn't see you arrive.
At ease, General.
Good to see you again. I thought you'd be on Palaven.
If we lose this moon, we lose Palaven. I'm the closest damn thing we have to an expert on Reaper forces, so I'm advising.
James, this is Garrus Vicarian. He helped me stop the Collectors. He's a hell of a soldier.
Lieutenant, good to see you too, Liara.
Good to see you in one piece, Garrus.
General Corinthus filled me in. We know who we're after.
Palaven Command tells me that the next Primarch is General Adrian Victus.
Okay.
Victus. His name's crossed my desk.
Know him, Garrus?
I was fighting alongside him this morning. Lifelong military, gets results, popular with his troops. Not so popular with military command. Has a reputation for playing loose with accepted strategy.
Oh. Okay. Also, little detail there that you might have missed. The general just saluted Garrus. So, Turians, their society is run in a hierarchy. It's basically a meritocracy in which you rise up in the ranks as you do good things, and we don't really know what Garrus's rank in that system is, but yet the general just saluted him, and he said at ease, like, Garrus, what? How high rank are you? Were you close to becoming the next Primarch? Because perhaps he might have been. But this new Primarch is apparently known for breaking some rules, it seems like.
What do you mean?
On Tatris, during the uprisings, his squad discovered a Solarian spy ring about the same time the Turian separatists did. Rather than neutralize the ring, he fell back. He even gave up valuable fortifications which the rebels took.
Then the rebels attacked the Solarians, and when both groups had worn each other down, Victus moved back in. Didn't lose a man.
Bold strategy, but wild behavior doesn't get you advanced up the meritocracy.
Primarch Victus. That should be something to see.
But now he's the Primarch, so you could say it paid off for him. Can we trust him?
You think he can get the job done?
We both know conventional strategy won't beat the Reapers. Right now, he could be our best shot. And I trust him.
Okay, let's get him on the shuttle and get out of here.
Commander! Shepard, come in!
Can this wait, Joker? We're in the middle of a war zone.
We
We've got a situation on the Normandy, Commander. It's like she's possessed, shutting down systems, powering up weapons. I can't find the source.
I need the Normandy standing by. We may have to bug out.
Should I go back and take a look?
Do it. Garrus, you said you were with Victus this morning?
Yeah, but we got separated. He went to bolster a flank that was breaking. Could be anywhere out there.
We're trying to raise him, Commander.
Incoming harvester, headed for the airfield.
Ooh, that doesn't look good. What the heck is that?
General, tell Primarch Victus we'll rendezvous here. In the meantime, let's go take care of whatever that thing dropped off. Coming, Garrus?
Are you kidding? I'm right behind you.
Alright, so Liara has left to go check out some problems that we're facing at the Normandy, and in her place we've now gotten Garrus, an old friend from Mass Effect 1, and of course Mass Effect 2 as well, assuming that he survived the final mission of Mass Effect 2, which in our case he certainly did. But let's take a look at what he brings to the table skills-wise. Of course, at the moment, he has no skills allocated at all. So lots of options here. And Garrus, let's just say, there is a very specific, famous setup for Garrus that is particularly notable on Insanity difficulty. Because, as we've said for our character, Shepard, and for Liara as well, we are a power-based character, throwing a bunch of biotics around and causing biotic explosions. That's our thing. For Garrus, not so. For him, he has a bunch of weapon-based abilities, things that will improve the damage of his weapon, and Overload that does damage against shields and barriers, which is good for covering for one of our weaknesses because we're not so good against shields as a biotic. But the thing with him is that by and large, Garrus is going to be what is oftentimes referred to as a quote-unquote weapons platform. That being, basically, we are going to turn him into a walking cannon that deals absolutely ridiculous damage whenever he fires his weapon. So that is, of course, going to require that we pick up some decent weapons because he can't do amazing things, or won't be quite as amazing at least, if we are shooting our enemies with little Nerf guns, but at least we can start to work toward that. So when it comes to our plan for Garrus, we are primarily trying to increase his damage to, well, astronomical levels with his weapon. So in that case, I think we might even be looking to focus on his passives to begin with here, because that is going to be at least one place where he can gain that weapon damage, as we're seeing here. So I think we might even start there and take this all the way up. I mean, one reason why you might want to do it in a slightly different order would be, again, because at least as of right now, we don't have the best weapons out there, and so, you know, this will definitely scale better longer term when we have better weapons to work with. But for the passives, I think we have the option here for weapon damage or for health and shields, and as I was saying before, for Garrus, we are going all-out weapon damage, because look at this. By rank 4, we are already at 100% weapon damage, which I don't think I need to tell you is a pretty high number. Then we can do power damage by 20%. He has Overload, that would be the primary thing that you would be increasing the damage of here. He does also have the Proximity Mine, which is, well, I think it's new to Mass Effect 3, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think this is in Mass Effect 2. So we'll take a quick look at this just to see what it's all about. So fire this sticky mine into traffic. It will detonate when an enemy steps within range. So it is pretty slow recharge time. It may sound like a grenade. Technically, it does not function the same way as a grenade does, because grenades have a limited capacity, but no cooldown, so you can throw them as quickly as you'd like, just as long as you still have some remaining. And then once you run out of them, you can't throw any more. Whereas for Garrus's Proximity Mine, there isn't a limit in terms of how many he can have out there, or well, I think he might only be able to have one out at a time technically, but he can throw them out as soon as it comes off cooldown. Now, as you can see here, at least to begin with, it's pretty slow cooldown, but as we level it up, we can potentially make it go a little bit quicker. So it's a source of damage with some AoE to it, some radius, so potentially can take out numerous enemies with it. So that is one thing that can be kind of nice. And then also, with that radius, I believe it can technically deal damage through cover and through even walls. And so, for that reason, it's a little bit more niche, but at least in some situations can be a very nice tool to have in our toolbox. So that's something we can consider, but probably not our highest priority at the moment. As I said, perhaps a little more niche. He does also have an ammo ability. In his case, it is armor-piercing ammo, and so it is kind of similar to incendiary ammo, at least in what it specializes against, because, as you can probably imagine, armor-piercing ammo, much like incendiary ammo, is best against armor. So brings down heavy armored units, shoots through light cover to hit enemies. That's the other difference, though, between incendiary ammo and armor-piercing ammo, is the incendiary ammo has a little bit of a damage over time component, yes, but the armor-piercing ammo provides an additional way to pierce through cover and through walls. So to start off with, as you see here, we get some damage bonuses to enemies that are on health. Generally not a huge problem, since that tends to mean those are the weakest types of enemies, or they're stronger enemies that are almost dead. Armor, as I was saying before, those tend to be boss enemies that are difficult to take down, and armor effectiveness, minus 50%, means that, as we were saying before, armor will usually mitigate the damage of all of your abilities, and so reducing the effectiveness of that damage mitigation by 50% is quite nice, because it means taking down bosses more easily. And then the penetration, like we were saying, shooting through barriers and potentially even walls. And then as we level it up, we can increase the penetration, increase the damage even more, or give it to squad mates, ammo capacity, headshot damage, damage to health and armor, or even more piercing. So this is perhaps going to be another thing that we place a pretty high priority on early for Garrus. Probably going to want at least 1 point in Overload, though, just because, as we were saying, it is nice to have that as a way to cover a bit for our weaknesses. So that's certainly an option. Let's see, what is next for his passive would be assault rifle damage versus power damage. I think we're probably going to keep him mostly on assault rifles, and then we go all the way down. For the last one, it would be a squad bonus for power damage, which is a little odd, since Garrus tends to be more of a weapons damage person, as we've been saying, but he's generally just a glass cannon. We're probably going to end up going the sniper rifles damage eventually, although that might not be quite as high a priority as getting up to the assault rifles damage, so let's take this one, because that means that is 150 total assault rifle damage, 100% for snipers as well, but then the proximity mine, I think we can probably wait on that. And so with the amount of points we have here, I believe it is 21 points to fully upgrade something, so that means we could go all the way to the max with armor-piercing ammo and then put 1 point into overload. Do we feel like we need to fully upgrade armor-piercing ammo right here, right now, or is that something that we feel like we could maybe wait a little bit before we go quite that far and instead put a few points into overload as a way to cover for our weaknesses? I mean, we're definitely at least going to put a few points into this for the damage and armor effectiveness, penetration, what have you. And the thing for Garrus is, yes, we could go with the squad bonus, but we could also make Garrus deal more damage, and that's an opportunity cost there that, you know, we have enough people that I think are going to be using the squad bonus that it's okay to have at least one person that is just using their own personal type of ammo. So James, for example, who we currently have in the party, is on squad incendiary ammo. So he can provide the incendiary stuff for us, and then Garrus can just do his own thing with armor piercing. So I think we go this route. And then we might stop there. His rank 5 is not that good. The ammo capacity potentially worth considering, because long term we will probably be using some very high clip size. Does this affect clip size or just total ammo? I don't remember. In which case, if it doesn't affect clip size, then that may not be very useful to us. Otherwise, headshot damage obviously sounds great, but squad mates don't necessarily make a committed effort to shoot enemies in the head, so for that reason, yeah, at least on a few occasions, it will deal some extra damage, but it's not going to be happening all the time. So for that reason, rank 5 is not a super high priority, and then by rank 6, yeah, we're getting more damage, or we're getting more piercing, which would be really nice, but since we're talking about having a little bit of a limited set of options here with our lack of level up progress points, perhaps we throw our remaining points here into Overload. So for this is also one that at least eventually we'd like to upgrade pretty heavily, but let's start out just by, I mean, we've seen Overload in Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, but in case you're new, it is basically a shields and barriers specialist type of ability, and actually the barriers is new in Mass Effect 3. It was in Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 almost exclusively for the shields, so it is more versatile in Mass Effect 3 now, so it is quite slow at rank 1, but I think we definitely want to at least get started on this, and then of course we can make that recharge a little bit faster. I suppose Garrus is not going to be throwing out powers nearly as often as Shepard as an adept, or Liara as another biotic explosion-y person is going to be doing, so it's not a huge deal if he is on a really long cooldown, but let's see. And how far do we want to go here? We could get 2 more upgrades. That is a possibility. And then upgrade Concussive Shot slightly more with our 2 points remaining at the end of that, or just save them. Thinking we go rank 3, that was what, an additional damage, and then we have damage or chain overload. So this is the interesting thing with overload, is to start off with, it is just a single target skill. That is actually new in Mass Effect 3. In Mass Effect 2, it has small AoE to it, where if aimed well, you could hit maybe 2, unlikely, but theoretically possible to hit 3 enemies. In Mass Effect 3, you're only hitting 1, at least by default, until you get chain overload. If you choose to go this route, you hit 1 additional target within 8 meters, but it does do significantly less damage. So that's sort of the AoE option, whereas damage is, well, as you might imagine, the damage option. And so generally speaking with Garrus, I think the name of the game for him is going to be single target damage. And so he's, I'm thinking, going to be someone who goes with the pure damage here. And another thing that Overload does that is not explicitly stated here, but is also a thing, is that Overload has the chance of stunning enemies. So that's also something that can be a little bit useful. So as I was saying, we theoretically could upgrade Concussive Shot a bit, but I'm thinking this is not a super high priority, so we might just save the points and make it so that we can get the last level of Turian Rebel or subsequent armor-piercing ammo or Overload upgrades later on more quickly. Then everyone else, I think, is in a good place here. So let's just save now that we've done that. So we have Garrus back. That's big. That is big. So let's see. We are looking to head over to the airfield, which... where exactly do we go to get there, you ask? Looks like the answer is through here.
Is that you breathing so hard?
Atmosphere's a little thinner than I'm used to, is all.
James struggling a bit?
Adrenaline's better than oxygen any day.
Alright, I believe this is actually the only place where we can get that upgrade there for the assault rifle magazine upgrade. So you gotta be careful, because this is a spot where I think we might not necessarily be heading back. And for, I believe, the first time ever, we are facing a new type of Reaper enemy. Well, I mean, obviously we've faced new types of Reaper enemies, but the first time we've seen this specific Reaper enemy, that being the Marauder. As you can see, it has shields, and so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to at least invest a bit in Garrus's overload ability. And technically, it'd be kind of nice to throw on this armor-piercing ammo real quick. What is the Marauder, you ask? It is basically a Reaper-fied Turian. And it is the most powerful Reaper enemy that we've seen thus far, and we are in a terrible spot here at the moment. So let us, now that we've gotten rid of its shields, singularity it, because now it is defenseless as it floats up there, and that is why we need to have people like Garrus to get rid of enemy shields, because we cannot activate we cannot disable people with singularity while they still have shields up. Okay, that Marauder is still going to be an issue, though. Let's knock you down with a concussive shot, and that actually got rid of its shield, such that it's now sucked into the singularity, so now it's getting primed for another explosion. And we've got more husks here. So, okay, let's make you go boom. Oh, what? Look, we were in the singularity. So of course we don't have Liara to give us the other person to set up and both prime and detonate the biotic combos, but we should be capable of doing so to decent effect by ourselves, and because we now have more of a weapons damage based team, I think we will oftentimes find that even when we are not necessarily using abilities to deal damage to people, we are taking people out just because Garrus and James will finish the job for us. Just want to make sure that we don't miss out on other potential upgrades in this area, because as I said, I think, as you saw previously, we doubled back to the area where we were in the camp previously, and so if you theoretically, if you missed anything the first time there, you can still go back and get it the second time you enter camp, but I think we are good now after having picked up that assault rifle upgrade there. I think that's the only thing here. There are a lot of husks. Where theoretically are we? Oh, we're just okay. We're just defending the airfield, man. Don't mind us. Don't think there's a specific place where we need to go at this stage. If I'm not mistaken, I think we're just trying to take out all the enemies, but I could be wrong about that. Here we started to see for the first time Marauders. So they do have weapons, unlike the husks. They obviously started to shoot us last time. That's why we started to lose our shields. That's why we are losing our shields right now. However, they also have an ability that allows them to give additional armor to their teammates. And that is significant because that can make it much more difficult at times to take out some of those enemies. This husk is going to get close to us if we're not careful. Like right now. So let's be careful. Singularity is maybe a little bit overkill right now, but well, then again. So this is a good situation, good example of a time when a throw might be the answer, because it has such a quick cooldown that we just want to get rid of this guy, and he technically is primed for a fire explosion because James set him on fire with his ammo effect. That means that we are already capable of using another ability here. We don't need to worry about missing out on combos. Okay, now we have this Marauder here. And it is perhaps a bit of a foreshadowing of a very, very significant enemy that we will face very, very far in the future. But I'm getting way ahead of myself there, and I will not discuss that any further for the time being. This is not the time for spoilers. That may have been our last enemy.
I think we're done here.
I think we are done here. So as I was saying, I believe now we're looking to head back to the general, but this spot here where we picked up the assault rifle upgrade, I do not believe you will ever head back here. So for that reason, make sure that you pick it up. Make sure you pick up those supplies, because otherwise, you're gonna miss them. I think you're gonna miss them. So let's just take another look around here, make sure we aren't missing anything else, because that would be a shame. Like that, looks like that could be something over there. Of course, there's also ammo, but once again, I don't believe we fired our weapon there. Is this something? Am I making that up? It is not something, apparently. Or at least not something significant. So, I think in that case, we will proceed. In some cases, I should note, in some cases, if you miss some things in missions, you will occasionally be able to purchase them from the Spectre terminal back on the Citadel, but that may not be the case 100% of the time. So, you know, it's a bit of a plan B.
Go ahead.
Still trying to raise the Primarch, but we've got trouble back here at the main barricade. If the Reapers breach it, we're done.
Okay. That doesn't sound good. Reapers attacking the barricade. Let's save again. And yeah, let's just make sure we've got this whole ammo situation sorted out here. So make sure that everyone, oh, we might be a little slow on this, but make sure that everyone has the proper ammo equipped. That being James incendiary ammo. And then we will just have Garrus override that with his personal armor-piercing ammo on both of his weapons, because Garrus's armor-piercing ammo, I think, will be superior, at least for the type of stuff he's trying to do. But we still have the option of using incendiary ammo for both of our weapons, so we get a little bit of the best of both worlds. Let's see. We've got some Turians trying to take these guys down. We've got this area up here we've got to head over to. We have to defend this barricade, and we can use this turret of sorts to do so, and it does shoot a lot, which is nice. Except it does overheat if you shoot it too much, which I did just do momentarily.
Taking them off. Maybe I can do 3 at a time.
So I think our teammates are helping us out here a bit. Oop, that's not good. That was bad timing.
Okay, come on. Who's next?
Also, it would help if I hit the enemies at all. I may have accidentally stepped out of the turret for a second there.
Like fish in a barrel.
What?
Old
Heads
human
up, here
saying,
comes another
like
wave.
fish in a barrel.
It's a human saying, you know? Yeah, we are definitely seeing our teammates are helping out as well, because we're seeing some enemies catch on fire, and that is going to be from James' weapon ammo effects. Yeah, I think we don't really need to shoot that much. Might have been doing a little bit overkill before. Kind of give them a couple shots. Assuming we actually hit them, we should be fine. Especially with the help of our friends. Not often we see them try to make their way all the way up on the left side there, but like that time, friends just doing all the work for us. But that's different.
Holy hell! What is that thing?
That's new. That is called a brute. And so these are the first real boss enemies that we've encountered thus far. And, well, it has armor. That means it is harder for us to deal damage to it. But as we've already seen, Garrus, that's kind of his specialty, dealing damage to guys like that. So what we will do is we will Singularity to try to prime it. And then we will detonate that with our warp. And we just want to stay away from this guy, because what he does is exactly that. Charges and deals a bunch of damage in the process. But speaking of a bunch of damage, our biotic explosions, they can do that too. So the big enemy is down, and we have our codex updated on brutes. Maybe we'll read up a bit on the enemies we've seen here for the first time.
What's the word on the Primarch?
Still can't get a stable comm link.
Okay, I'm going on foot. Shepard out. Garrus, take me to the last place you saw Victus.
Okay, so let's take a quick look at our codex here and just learn a bit more about the enemies that we are encountering here. So codex, let's see, the Reapers.
The Reaper, called Harbinger, is believed to be the oldest and largest in the Reaper Armada. From the reaches of dark space, Harbinger managed to control the Collectors, a race of human-sized insectoid bipeds, as it sent them on a campaign to kill and gather humans from vulnerable colonies. The Collectors became a terrifying force in the galaxy, responsible for the murder of hundreds of thousands. Surviving colonists have described the tone of Harbinger's threats heard through the Collectors as they attacked as visceral and terrifying. Alliance intelligence has tentatively identified Harbinger as one of the Reapers leading the attack on Earth.
So from what we understand, Harbinger is one of, if not the, leader of the Reaper forces. And in Mass Effect 2, of course, we saw Harbinger a lot. Technically, it was Harbinger indirectly assuming direct control of the Collector forces, and so it wasn't Harbinger itself we were fighting as much as the Collector that it would always possess.
A myth common to several cultures in the galaxy, Reapers were once imagined as space monsters that consumed entire stars. Archaeologists who searched for the sources of such myths found little besides the themes of all-consuming devils that are common to primitive cultures. Although accurate information about the Reapers remains scarce, the galaxy now knows that the Reapers are not a myth. They are a real and devastating threat.
Sure you haven't dismissed that claim?
Sovereign was the first Reaper encountered by the modern Citadel races. Military leaders initially assumed that Sovereign was a Geth or Prothean flagship commanded by Saren Arterius, a rogue Spectre. The truth was far more alarming. The massive ship was itself intelligent, and Saren proved to be under its control. The attacks by Sovereign against Eden Prime and the Citadel removed any uncertainty about the Reaper's technological superiority. Sovereign's formidable shielding and firepower allowed it to hold off the combined fleets of the Citadel, and its mass effect fields proved powerful enough to let the enormous vessel land on a planet's surface. Sovereign's mission, to open a mass relay that would transport the other Reapers from dark space, proved its undoing. During the Battle of the Citadel, Sovereign linked its consciousness to Saren's. When Saren's death corrupted the signal and shut down Sovereign's shields, Sovereign's destruction soon followed.
So basically, Sovereign, of course, being the Reaper that we, for a very long time, did not realize was a Reaper, or at least couldn't quite confirm was actually a Reaper, he fought in Mass Effect 1, and basically did what Harbinger did a whole lot in Mass Effect 2 and assumed direct control over Saren's body, the other antagonist in Mass Effect 1. And notably, Sovereign was supposed to be the Reaper that opened up the gate, so to speak, for all the other Reapers to get into the galaxy, which we didn't quite know for certain. I mean, certainly Sovereign made threats like that, but that was technically Sovereign's job and Sovereign's plan, and by destroying Sovereign, we successfully fended off the Reapers and delayed their invasion by at least a couple of years, but of course, here they are now, so to a certain extent it was inevitable. Then Indoctrination, we've talked a bit about this before, we will definitely talk about it more, but pay very close attention to the details for this next one.
Reaper indoctrination is an insidious means of corrupting organic minds, reprogramming the brain through physical and psychological conditioning using electromagnetic fields, infrasonic and ultrasonic noise, and other subliminal methods. The Reaper's resulting control over the limbic system leaves the victim highly susceptible to its suggestions. Organics undergoing indoctrination may complain of headaches and buzzing or ringing in their ears. As time passes, they have feelings of being watched and hallucinations of ghostly presences. Ultimately, the Reaper gains the ability to use the victim's body to amplify its signals, manifesting as alien voices in the mind. Indoctrination can create perfect deep cover agents. A Reaper's suggestions can manipulate victims into betraying friends, trusting enemies, or viewing the Reaper itself with superstitious awe. Should a Reaper subvert a well-placed political or military leader, the resulting chaos can bring down nations. Long-term physical effects of the manipulation are unsustainable. Higher mental functioning decays, ultimately leaving the victim a gibbering animal. Rapid indoctrination is possible, but causes this decay in days or weeks. Slow, patient indoctrination allows the thrall to last for months or years.
So, lots and lots of very interesting details here. We've, of course, seen and talked about indoctrination in Mass Effect 1, in Mass Effect 2, and already a bit in Mass Effect 3, but notable things to highlight here. The hallucinations and ghostly presences might be something that pops up on occasion. We'll want to try to make a mental note of whenever that does happen. Or we hear people talking about that happening for them. That's a good indication of, hey, maybe we don't want to trust this person that much because they may actually be indoctrinated by the Reapers. And basically, as it says here, once someone is indoctrinated, the Reapers can more or less control their minds and their actions, and the longer they've been indoctrinated for, the more significantly they've been indoctrinated, the more significant those effects would be. And as we saw, if they can indoctrinate an important person like, say, Saren, one of the most highly praised specters, then that can cause a whole boatload of problems, but the physical effects are unsustainable, so when it comes to the ways in which the Reapers can most effectively indoctrinate someone, it would actually be by this slow and patient route, and that way they can keep them indoctrinated for a long time, but that might mean that the initial signs of indoctrination are hard to catch before enough time has passed that it really starts to add up. And in the case of the faster indoctrination, then you can kind of think of that as sort of like husks, in that they become mindless thralls, which is basically exactly what a husk is. Granted, the husks have also been physically modified quite a bit. But then I think we'll start to get into the specific enemies that we've encountered here, which is, of course, what initiated my my interest in going down this little rabbit hole here.
The Citadel races have classified the known variants of Reapers into 4 types. Capital ships are Sovereign-class Reapers 2 kilometers in length. They typically target the dreadnoughts, defense installations, and industrial cities of organic civilizations. Experts believe the Reapers harvest a single species of organics during each cycle of extinction to create these massive ships. Some capital ships are capable of launching small drones equivalent to fighters. Destroyers are 160 meters long and, in astounding numbers, make up the bulk of the Reaper fleet. They engage cruisers and other smaller ships, as well as communications posts and enemy command centers. Research suggests destroyers are created from those species that are not harvested to make capital ships. Troop transports carry husks to unconquered planets and bring victims of the harvest to Reaper processing centers. They vary in length from 200 meters to 1 kilometer, but unlike capital ships and destroyers, do not appear to be self-aware. Instead, other Reapers operate troop transports remotely. Processors, also called slaughter ships, are mobile centers for mass DNA harvesting. Like troop transports, processors appear to be remotely operated by sapient Reapers.
So those are the big Reapers, the capital ships being the really huge ones that we were seeing landing on Earth and just demolishing everything that they came across. The destroyers look similar, but are basically just smaller, and we might have seen some of those on occasion as well. Sometimes, unless you see them right next to each other and there's an obvious difference in their size, it's a little hard to tell which one is which. And then we don't really see much in the way of the troop transports or processors.
The Brute is a hulking amalgamation of Turian and Krogan victims of the Reapers. Because tissue from dextroprotein species like the Turians is incompatible with levoprotein species like the Krogan, implants regulate the Brute's body chemistry to combat organ rejection. It is the fusion of Turian military skill and Krogan blood rage that makes the Brute such a formidable enemy, capable of destroying armored vehicles to get to the soldiers inside. Troops are advised to keep their distance and, whenever possible, not engage a Brute alone.
Yeah, so a combination of Krogan and Turians is how they create these Brutes. And so, we haven't talked about this that much yet, but the freaky thing about these Reaper forces, we heard about it a little bit when we were talking about the larger ships that the Reapers create, they are all made from the species that they harvest. It's kind of grim. But those husks, as we actually saw in as early as Mass Effect 1, those are humans. The cannibals, which we saw in the tutorial, well, I suppose we might hear about some of these later on in just a minute, but yeah, in this case, it's Turian plus Krogan for the Brutes.
Cannibals are frontline Reaper units created from corrupted Batarians. The nickname refers to their propensity to devour the bodies of fallen comrades. This triggers a biochemical process through which the cannibals spontaneously heal themselves and grow new chitinous armor. The transformation also appears to give cannibals a greater awareness of their surroundings, leading to more strategic behavior and careful use of battlefield cover.
So we haven't seen too much of this yet, because for the most part we've just seen cannibals on the very first mission on Earth, but that is something to bear in mind, is that when there are enemies that we've already defeated that are just hanging out on the ground, then cannibals will oftentimes swarm around those enemies and yes, they will cannibalize their corpses. And it does give us an opportunity, perhaps, to deal a bunch of damage to numerous cannibals, but if they have the time to consume them, then those cannibals will get stronger defensively and also smarter, so we just gotta be careful of that.
Husks are the aggressive, mindless foot soldiers of the Reaper armies. They are created by impaling either living or dead humans on mechanical spikes that rapidly extract water and trace minerals, and replace them with cybernetics. These cybernetics reanimate the lifeless flesh and tissue, transforming the bodies into horrifying killing machines. The Reapers use large groups of husks to overwhelm the enemy. The husks' inability to feel pain, as well as their tendency to attack in groups, makes them particularly deadly adversaries.
Yeah, so for the most part, the husks and the cannibals are going to be the basic enemies that we encounter. We've seen a whole bunch of husks. They're not that dangerous by themselves, but in large groups they can swarm you and get you surrounded and take you down that way, or oftentimes they'll rush you down when you're trying to stay in cover to avoid getting overwhelmed by other enemies that are usually more dangerous, and they knock you out of cover, and then between the little bit of damage you take from the husks, but just generally being much more vulnerable to that other type of enemy, that's usually what gets you killed. So the husks and the cannibals, the basic enemies. The brutes start to be the point where you say, alright, that's more boss territory now.
Marauders are harvested Turians that command and protect other Reaper troops. The lean, armored creatures present a significant threat in and of themselves, but they are especially dangerous when leading a Reaper task force. Alliance Marines have observed Marauders fortifying husks and cannibals by enveloping them in a ribbon of energy that forms a scabby shell of armor. For this reason, when Alliance soldiers encounter a Marauder alongside husks or cannibals, standing orders are to target the Marauder first.
So we were talking a little bit about this before, because this was the first time we've seen Marauders and Brutes here on Manet, and which makes sense because both of those Reaper forces are created in part, or in this case, in full, using Turians. But so these are sort of like the mid-level enemies, if you will, in that they are fairly powerful with their weapons. They have shields, so it's not as straightforward to take them out. And if we give them time to do so, they will start to basically lift up either husks or cannibals in the air and do what looks like this dark magic ritual, and while doing so, if they complete that process, they will give those husks and cannibals, they might actually be able to do it to brutes as well. I think they might be able to do that. They give those enemies additional armor, which actually, if you're shooting at them, and you hit them in those spots that have the armor, you deal 0 damage, I believe, unless you have armor piercing, in which case you can pierce through that, which is another good use for that armor piercing. Fortunately for us, when it comes to the biotic combos, they are largely unaffected by that, so it's not as big a factor for us, but for our other teammates, or at least for us when we're focusing on dealing damage with our weapon directly, that could become a factor. And that's the last of the Reapers that we know about right now. So, as we were saying, Marauders, those are new. Brutes, those are new as well.